camp. How many memories are connected with him, and how few people have truly appreciated spending time in it. This is the place where youth and naivety are intertwined, where children of different ages not only live as one big family, but also try to get along, so to speak, with each other. Betrayal, first love, memories. It's all part of this beautiful place, and everyone has their own. But nothing stirs the blood more than scary stories at night, in beds under the light of a flashlight from a phone, or by the campfire late at night in the nearest forest. I will tell you about one such story. What's real here and what's past, you can decide for yourself. It was the winter of 2010. The Czarnitsa camp, which has just been restored and reopened, has already been visited by children and counselors for the winter shift. Their every day was filled with activities. The morning began with charging in the building to the cheerful music of the Soviet days, so as not to disturb the general entourage of the Soviet camp. At lunch, the children and counselors ate in the dining room, and after that, a quiet hour was announced. In the evening, before going to bed, it was necessary to hold a so-called candle. This is the name of the ceremony, when the squad lights a candle and places it in the center. After that, everyone should definitely share their impressions of the day. The second squad decided to take a different path, as I remember. The evening began with a scary but instructive story. I want to be sure of you. I want to know that you won't betray me. You won't leave. That you will support and understand. Why such self-doubt, my dear Aris? Said the girl with brown hair, and came closer to the black-haired young man. You know I'm totally on your side. That you're the only one I care about, darling, she said, putting her pale hands on his cheeks. And she leaned her forehead against his. At least they both pretended that they were actually touching each other. A girl and a young man stood like that in the living room of their house, and enjoyed this moment. Only the two of them knew what they were thinking. But even such sensual moments are interrupted sooner or later. Rainy, I love you. Do you hear? I love you. And I'm ready to fight for the right to be with you. I'll definitely come up with something that will allow me to always be there for you. You're already close, my dear. You may be cursed with disembodiedness, but I can still feel you next to me. I see you. I hear you. But that's not enough. It's not enough for me, the young man said, and flew away from his beloved into the far corner. How much longer are you ready to wait for me? You've traveled almost all over the world, and not a single sorcerer, not even a magician, has told you how to remove this vile curse. Who knows? Maybe you've already met another person a long time ago, and you're with me out of pity? Rainy didn't answer. What can I say if almost everything is true? She had almost failed to find anyone who could lift the curse, but she couldn't even think of betraying her lover, to betray and abandon him in such a difficult hour for him. Yes, she was deprived of his touch. Yes, she couldn't fully enjoy touching him, his skin. And yet, she did not give up hope that one day her lover would become corporeal, that she would finally be able to touch him every day and every hour, minute, second. I'm right, aren't I? Did you find someone? The ghost interrupted the girl's thoughts. No, I didn't find it. I haven't looked for it, and I'm not going to look for it. Why do I need anyone but you, Aris? You're beautiful. You have very beautiful brown eyes and black hair. Your hands are gentle, as I still remember them. You are very caring and attentive. I'm sure the way to bring you back to a normal life is somewhere nearby. Aris did not answer. He was instantly ashamed that he dared to doubt the love of his gentle and beautiful Rainy, that her faith was as strong as her love for him. And yet, he flew up to her, and he put his hands on hers. As it usually happened, the hands went through. But still, they have long since learned to hold them as if everything was normal. It was as if there was no ghost, but there were two lovers who finally saw each other after a long separation. Forgive me, my dear and beautiful Rainey. Sometimes I think that I don't deserve the love of such a beautiful and wise girl like you. You deserve it. You certainly deserve it, my beloved. The girl touched her lips to Aris's ghostly cheek. He didn't feel anything, and neither did she, but they both pretended to feel it. Today, by the way, is the 5th moon. Yes, you're right. We have been together for 5 years, of which 1 year is my ghostly wandering. Perhaps I should have helped that witch. Well, you wouldn't refuse her, okay? I would have fulfilled her request to give myself to her for 1 night. Would you be the same after that, Aris? I don't think so. It's even possible that I would have lost everything human and just become a toy in someone else's hands. Exactly. But you resisted, and you preserved, no, even defended your beliefs and your loyalty and love for me. Curses can be lifted. The main thing is to find a way. How? Rainey, do you know that I love you? And I love you, Aris. And in honor of our 5 years together, I have a little gift for you. You do remember that a ghost doesn't need any jewelry or food or God knows what else, don't you? Oh, my dear, it's much better. You'll see for yourself now. You'll feel it. Every year, on the Wednesday of the new month, the green moon rose. Many magicians and wizards, as well as sorcerers and warlocks, believed that magical powers were enhanced during the green moon, and also that spells and curses are dispelled with unprecedented ease. And it just so happened that today was such a day. Rainey moved away from the ghost and took out a scroll from a book on the shelf. The green light of the full moon began to illuminate them both, and the scroll seemed to glow with a shade of turquoise. Arbabul Kleist. The nights are dark, the days are bright. Arbabul Ulais Tuvar. Grant the invisible the visible. After the words were spoken, Aros was enveloped in a bright scarlet haze. He was engulfed in a whirlwind, and he fell onto a soft orange carpet. The young man lay motionless for a while. But then he put his hands on the wooden floor, and unable to believe his feelings, he cried loudly with happiness. Rainey knelt down in front of her lover and put her hands on his cheeks. This time, she clearly felt the warmth of his skin. Without hesitation, she hugged him, and her lover returned her embrace, still bursting into bitter tears. I told you I'd find a way. However, we don't have much time. The spell's effect is temporary, and it will cease to work with the first rays of the sun. Eris gradually began to calm down, and then he looked into the eyes of his beloved Rainey and drowned in her gaze. During this touching moment, he touched his lips to hers, very gentle and sensual. Rainey returned the kiss. She wanted Aris, and had missed him for quite some time. But due to understandable limitations, she could not experience the full range of sensations from his touch on her body. Eris, meanwhile, began touching her shoulders with his hands. He was stroking the girl's shoulders very gently, but with obvious impatience. Sometimes he touched her collarbones with his lips. At the moment when Aris was stroking Rainey's chin, he noticed that his hands began to pass through the girl again. "Oh no," I said. "No, no, no, no. Not now, please," the young man exclaimed, and unsuccessfully began to try to touch his beloved. Rainey, in turn, opened her eyes and watched in horror as her lover's body began to turn transparent again. The girl was trying to find the scroll to understand what could have caused such an effect. After all, the wizard had assured her that they would have the whole night. Did he really cheat? Rainey thought to herself. Tears began to flow from her eyes. She was confused and heartbroken because for a scroll of such value and importance, she donated a part of her body to the sorcerer. For some reason, her little finger on her right foot was important to that old man. In order to spend some time, even a night, she made such a sacrifice. And all for the sake of the beloved. Meanwhile, Eris has become a disembodied ghost again. The moonlight shone through his body. On the unfortunate man's face, one could see longing and universal sadness. And you can understand him. He just kissed and hugged his beloved, believing that the two of them have the whole night. But as soon as I believed in this one possibility, it immediately disappeared. Darling, my precious lover, I do not know why that is. Tomorrow I will go to the city again and find this sorcerer, and I will cut his throat. It's not worth it, my love, Eris whispered resignedly and quietly. He understood that bloodshed would not change anything. It's definitely worth it. He deceived both you and me. I gave him a part of me, you know, and all for the sake of spending at least a night with you. In the end, it wasn't enough. Rainey started crying again, covering her face with her hands. Eris, seeing this, flew up to his beloved and tried to take her hands in his, but he didn't succeed. Let's go to bed, my dear. The morning of the evening is more complicated. Rainey didn't answer, but she went into the bedroom and they lay down on the bed. More precisely, Rainey lay down, and Eris pretended to lie down and hug the girl. He was saddened that he shared a bed with his beloved that night, being a ghost, and not an ordinary person of flesh and blood. It's going to be okay, my love. I believe we can do this, Eris whispered softly to his beloved. Rainey didn't answer, but she smiled softly, because she believed it too. The next morning, Rainey woke up first. Usually, Eris would wake her up with a gentle whisper in her ear. In his disembodied form, he needed neither sleep nor food. That's why Rainey was alarmed that her lover wasn't there when she opened her eyes. The girl jumped up and shouted, "Eris, where are you, my love?" There was only sullen silence. Rainey walked around the inside of their small house, but she didn't see anyone. She sat down on the bed, not knowing what to think. But then her gaze caught on the pillow, on which lay something tiny. The girl took this inconspicuous thing with her fingers, which turned out to be a piece of clothing. And it wasn't a simple piece. It looked very much like a piece of the brown wool shirt worn by Eris. He was wearing it, even when he became a ghost. The girl's face paled. She didn't know what to think. We urgently need to find this old man and find out everything from him, Rainey thought. She picked up her bag and slung it over her shoulder. Before leaving, she checked the contents and breathed a sigh of relief when she saw a silver dirk with a gilded handle. This weapon had once belonged to her father. It wasn't far from the city. It was always a 30-minute walk along the highway. Rainey didn't encounter any trouble on the way. Having already arrived in the city, the girl went to the sorcerer's house, and when she found the right door, she knocked. Who was blown by the wind so early? An old man's voice was heard. Look, they don't let you sleep in your old age. If it wasn't for your age, I would have blown you all away long ago, like one famous fox of 3 lambs. The sorcerer opened the window and looked out to find out who had disturbed his rest. Rainey didn't hesitate to put a dirk to his neck, and she asked a question. Why the hell did you give me a spell that only worked for 10 minutes, old man? My Eris is gone. To be honest, the sorcerer's gray hair seemed to have turned even more gray. His foil cap was slightly askew from such an unexpected attack. For a moment the old man was silent, examining the girl's furious face, and realized that one extra move and his old age would end here and now. Deciding not to push his luck, he said, "Calm down, daughter. Look how nimble she is. For a dagger at once. Don't try my patience, you bastard. Answer the question. Why did you deceive us?" The old man sighed heavily. He noticed that a crowd of onlookers began to gather near his house, and it began to make him nervous. Who knows what people will think? The sorcerer looked at the girl again and said, "Let's go inside. You can tell me everything there, but I swear to you by my beard, for it is my main strength. I didn't deceive anyone." Rainey took her dirk hand away and went into the house. The interior was simple and without luxury. There were flasks and reagents somewhere. In the living room, there was a cupboard with a bunch of books and some parchments. Some of the buildings were so dilapidated that it seemed that if you touched them, they would immediately crumble to dust. The sorcerer sat down at the table and looked expectantly at the girl, and then he asked, "So you're saying I tricked you, right? And why do you think that?" Rainey, filled with anger, stuck a dirk in front of the old man's hand. The man jerked and screamed in surprise. "Yes, you're a filthy warlock. I did everything as you explained to me. I cast a spell into the green moon, by the light of that damned moon. And you know what? 10 minutes. That's how long it took. You promised me a night with my lover, and in the end, we had too little time. And what's more, my lover disappeared the next morning. I do not know if he flew away or not, but there was a piece of clothing left from him." The girl pulled a piece of shirt out of her pocket and threw it at the old man. The sorcerer picked up the object thrown to him, and then he closed his eyes and was silent for a minute. Before he opened them, his face darkened. He looked sternly at the girl and said, "I have some bad news for you, my daughter. I do not feel the presence of your beloved in this world. Of course, you can stab me right here, and I'm even willing to accept my death if I'm really to blame. But before you kill me, beautiful, I'll ask you 2 questions." Rainey nodded curtly, unable to believe her ears. She could barely restrain herself from stabbing the old man on the spot. Her interlocutor, as well as the possible culprit of the whole incident, took a deep breath. He perfectly understood and felt that he was close to death. But he couldn't believe that the spell hadn't worked, and he was very curious to figure out what really happened. The first question: "Have you read the spell correctly, my dear?" Rainey nodded. "Okay. Question 2. Do you have the scroll?" The girl nodded again and reached into her bag. The dirk was still stuck in the table, and the old man had no doubt that it could have landed right in his heart with extraordinary ease. Rainey laid out a piece of parchment on the table. The wizard picked it up and unfolded it. There was enough sunlight from the windows in the room, so everything was visible. "Do you remember how and what words you said?" the sorcerer asked her. "Yes. By the light of the moon, I said the following: Arbabul Kleist, the nights are dark, the days are bright. Arbabul Ulais Tuvar, grant the invisible the visible." While the girl was casting the spell, the old man carefully read the contents of the scroll that he had given her yesterday. He sighed heavily again, handed the scroll to the girl, and said, "I'm so sorry, honey, but you missed a word in the spell. This played a role in everything that happened. Here, look at this," he said, and pointed to the line. Rainey took a closer look and began to feel her heart begin to slow down. In fact, the scroll had the following written on it: Arbabul Kleist, the nights are dark, the days are bright. Arbabul Ulais Tuvarhrar, grant the invisible the visible this night and until dawn. As you can see, the spell worked correctly. Practically true. Unfortunately, one of the fundamental laws of magic was violated. If you cast a spell incorrectly or miss at least one word, then everything may not turn out well. And there's also a rare scroll here. That's why it didn't work out the way it was supposed to. How so? How could I do that? The girl began in a barely audible whisper. It happens. I warned you yesterday to be careful, and because you made a mistake while reading, I don't know if it was due to carelessness or you were in a hurry. But the fact remains that the spell's effect has intensified, and in such a way that with the first rays of the sun, your lover literally disappeared, and in general. The magician continued. But the girl wasn't listening to him. Rainey slowly picked up her dirk and headed for the exit. She no longer cared what the magician said. She also didn't care about his life. There was no point in killing him. Why take revenge on someone innocent of what happened? If anyone is going to be punished, it's only yourself. The girl did not notice how she reached home. By the time she returned home, the sun had gradually set below the horizon. She saw Aurus everywhere in the house. She felt it here and there, but he was nowhere to be seen. Rainey lit a candle and placed it on the bedside table. She wasn't hungry at all. After everything that had happened, and after what she had learned, she didn't feel like eating at all. She tried to sleep, but she felt cold. Rainey went to the closet by the door and took out a large wool blanket. It was a gift from Eris for her 20th birthday 2 years ago. At that time, he was working as an apprentice in the shop of the famous seamstress, Madame Delalieu. In the absence of a lot of money, he wove this blanket and gave it to his beloved. It still smelled of him. When the girl closed the closet door, she froze. She saw her lover in the mirror. He stood behind her and gently hugged her shoulders. She saw his every move, but she couldn't turn around. Eris continued to hug her. Moreover, he was smiling. And then the guy exhaled air at the mirror, and with his finger he wrote a small message for his beloved. Don't blame yourself, my love. And goodbye. Rainey still made an effort to control herself, and turned around. But when she did, she didn't see anyone behind her. This caused her to kneel down and cry bitterly. She was clutching the blanket that Aris had given her, and she didn't think at all about letting go of it. So the girl fell asleep, leaning against the closet and holding that blanket in her hands. And she dreamed of her beloved and beloved young man. He was smiling and waving at her. Rainey, on the other hand, ran to meet him, laughing loudly in disbelief. Her lover was alive. She reached Aris and hugged him tightly, and he hugged her even tighter. I'm here, my precious love, Aris said. And I am with you, the tenderness of my soul and the joy of my heart, the girl replied to him. And I don't need anything else. And no one. In response, Aris smiled and put his palms on the girl's cheeks and kissed her gently on the top of her head. From his kiss, her hair turned ash-gray. Will you come with me? I saw an incredibly beautiful field there, over the hill. There seems to be a huge variety of sunflowers growing there. Would you like to walk with me? Of course. You ask me again. You're a wonderful miracle, Rainey said, and poked her lover in the side with her tiny but strong fist. He rubbed the place of the blow, as if it hurt him, and smiled. And they left, holding hands, happy and satisfied that they are finally together. The next morning, a traveling merchant passing by the house decided to knock on the door, but as soon as he touched the door, it opened, and he saw a girl with ash-gray hair sitting by the closet. She was holding a large and apparently very warm wool blanket in her hands. Well, that's the end of the fairy tale, and who was listening? Well done, Yulia Maximovna said. How is the end? Already? So fast? Marika sighed in disappointment. But what about, did they live happily ever after? And anyway, where is our promised happy ending? It was already shouted by Roma. He was a tall, dark-skinned boy. Well, well, guys, stop swearing. We've already delayed our candle, said Yulia Maximovna, the first counselor of the second squad. Still, it's a pity that it happened that way. They could be together, Elia replied sadly, ignoring her counselor. Yes, but at what cost? Just one night. The red-haired Alka chimed in. For some people, eternity won't be enough, you're right. Still, I can understand Rainey. After all, when you love, even one night can be a blessing, Julia, the counselor, replied. Well, now it's time to go to the buildings. The head of the camp, Vladimir Alexandrovich, will not pat us on the head, especially since there's an evening event tomorrow, which, by the way, our squad should be rehearsing. Well, Yulia Maximovna, well, let's sit some more. This is one of our most lamp-like candles. No, guys, that's it. According to the buildings and in no other way. The guys grumbled, but there was nothing to do, so we had to leave. The boys went to their wing, the girls went to their own place. Yulia Maximovna went to check on the girls, but before that, she slapped her partner, the second counselor, on the back of the head. Okay, Turtle, take a good nap. Go spread your boys on their beds." "Mm-hmm," came the reply. "Not uh-huh, but get up and go. We still have a meeting at 15 minutes to 12. I'm coming, Maximovna." The counselor stirred. He sat up straighter, yawning, and began to stretch. Around his neck, he proudly wore a green tie, the symbol of their second unit. So how did the story end? I fell asleep at the moment when this idiot showed up at the elderly magician. The same as always. This legend is 100 years old at lunchtime, and you still haven't heard it to the end. That's the same for me, counselor, damn it. Okay, don't grumble. See you at the meeting. Pavel left. Julia always called him Turtle since childhood. She gave him this nickname because he always did everything slowly. So Pasha went to check on his boys. He and Maximovna have divided their responsibilities between them. He is responsible for the boys, and she is responsible for the girls. When Pasha approached the rooms of his charges, he heard muffled voices. "And I'm telling you that a ghost lives in the camp, and not just a ghost, but a real vengeful spirit," said one voice. It was Sasha, the oldest in the squad, a blond guy of 16. "You're kidding. And where would he be? Why is it not visible?" Another taller one echoed him. This was already said by the youngest in the squad, Maxime, a boy of 14. "And you have to fall in love first. Do you understand? Fall in love with someone, declare your love, and then break that girl's heart. Then, one night, the vengeful spirit of the counselor, whose heart someone once broke here, will come for you." There was silence. The guys thought about it. No one wanted to mess with any vengeful spirits, and even more so to confess your love to someone. It's expensive. They'll laugh again, and their own. Pavel broke the silence when he entered the room. "Are you awake, gays? Do you tell each other bedtime stories?" "Oh, Pavel Alexandrovich, and you are here. Yes, we were somehow inspired by the legend that your friend Yulia Maximovna told us." Sasha teased his counselor. Good. You put me up to it. Plow 1 point for your karma," Pavel laughed, and added, "Yulia Maximovna and I have been friends since childhood." And she heard the legend right there, when we ourselves were pioneers in this children's camp, back then, before the collapse. "Pavel Alexandrovich, what was this camp like? Everywhere I look, there are old Soviet sculptures. They're restored, but they scare the hell out of me," Maxime said. Yes, tell me. How was it here? And have they told you scary stories too?" the guys shouted. Pavel Alexandrovich raised his hands in a calming gesture and replied, "A camp is like a camp, except that the food was tastier than it is now. And so, yes, we also told stories to each other." Pavel looked at his watch and continued, "I have 10 more minutes, and then to the planning meeting. What would you like to hear?" "A vengeful spirit. It's true? Is it true that if you confess your love to someone on the eve of February 14th, then this creature, or whoever it is, will come for revenge?" "They say different things, guys. Some believe in it, some don't. Neither I nor my friends from the camp were persecuted by the spirit, but if you want, you can check it for yourself." Pavel Alexandrovich laughed. "The main thing is not to die." There was an awkward silence. All the guys fell silent. Someone cleared his throat and said, "I think that's enough scary stories for today. Let's all go to sleep." "That's a good idea. You go to sleep, and I'll go to a meeting." "Oh, there's still an event to cook tomorrow," Pavel Alexandrovich replied and began to pack up. "Well, good night to you all. May the light save you all." After saying that, the counselor made the sign of the cross over the children, looking at the night, and left the room. Pavel closed the door behind him and was about to leave when he felt as if someone was watching him. He looked around, but saw no one. Shrugging his shoulders, he went to the assembly hall, where the head of the camp and the coordinator gathered with all the counselors, both younger and older. Passing by the girls' rooms, Pavel Alexandrovich again felt that someone was boring into his back. He crossed himself and said to himself, "Go away." You know you can't have me. Silence answered him. At first, the temperature around dropped below room temperature, but after his words, it returned to normal. You're still mine. Mine, and no one else's. Pasha heard a muffled whisper, but I didn't see anyone. We'll see about that. In the meantime, go in peace. And don't terrorize anyone, please. This is between us. That's the only way, and no other way. The oppressive feeling of something alien released Pavel, and then someone called out to him, "Turtle, why are you standing still? Everything will start soon." Maximovna called out to her partner in a low voice. Pavel shook his head from side to side, shaking off the delusion, and he replied, "I'm coming. I'm coming. Did you put the girls down?" "Yeah, right now." Julia came closer. "We sat and told each other romantic stories. And you of your own?" "It was almost the same as yours. Just blood, guts, and all that stuff," Pavel joked. "You're a fool. Oh, you fool. Let's go. They're waiting for us there." And they left. Life in the camp continued. None of the counselors and children suspected yet that they would remember this shift for the rest of their lives.